Sorcery has one main release per year, and this has been clear even since the Kickstarter days. But Minisets might be a great way to let an artist explore a theme, get more support for specific minion types, and just inject new cards into the meta. Let's explore the idea, both the pros and the cons of Minisets.
We will be discussing some of the really interesting aspects of Minisets, such as getting new cards in between the official main releases, and Minisets will also allow artists to explore a specific theme in their art style. But Minisets are not without their problems. One thing is the packaging and the selling of Minisets, and another thing is striking that fine balance between collectability and availability. So we want to explore the topic of Minisets, and this idea was given to us by Arbogast, so shout out to Arbogast. Sorcery has yet to release their first Miniset, but we know that the first Miniset is actually in the pipeline and has been for some time, because the creator of the game, Erik Olofsson, teased that Ed Bearded Jr. was going to make a Dragon Lord Miniset for Sorcery. This set was supposed to come out in the fall of 2023, but due to a lot of different reasons, the set was postponed and is now maybe due after the release of Ethereum Legends in the early spring of 2025. The Dragon Lord Miniset was supposed to have 15 cards originally, but we know that the set size has grown since then. We don't know how many cards are going to be in the set, but we know it's still focused around Ed Beard Jr.'s idea of a Dragon Lord and his vision of this story.
Initially, we found the idea of Minisets super appealing. It seemed like a great and more easy way than a main release to get a shake-up after 6 months of the release of a main set. It was a way to get more cards, fewer artists, not as much time needed, but as we really thought out the idea for this video, we realized that there are a few hiccups that would need to be solved. Some of the things that really concerned us as we delved into the topic of Minisets was the idea of how to balance the accessibility of a very small set without also compromising either the rarity system within Sorcery or the collectability of these cards. But more on that later. Right now we're going to look at all the really exciting prospects of Minisets. Before we go into all the pros of a Miniset, we are super curious to know, what would your dream Miniset be? Which artist, which theme, which things? Let us know down below in the comment section.
The first advantage of a Miniset was having typal support, and this was mentioned by Arbogast. A lot of players like to have typals in their decks and building typal decks, and having Miniset support this could really be advantageous when releasing a Miniset. Just imagine if you're having a set release that could be focused around the myth of Atlantis. Imagine then having a Miniset come out 6 months prior to this release and teasing maybe a lot of merfolks. That could be a great way to tease the coming set, and also already having people being focused on a specific typal that they could build around with the upcoming set.
If you're getting any value out of this video, please do smash the like button and consider becoming a subscriber. And if you want to support us just a little bit further, you can become a Patreon member or YouTube channel member for under $3 a month. Thank you. Another great thing that could be so fun and so exciting to see with Minisets would be letting an artist take some more ownership, like we're seeing with Ed Beard Jr.'s Dragon Lord, and really explore either a world or a theme or a specific type of creature in the set, but really letting them have some ownership and letting them do an entire mini set in their art style, and preferably with a theme or a topic that they really enjoy. I think that would be a lot of fun to see, and I think we would see some great artistic expression come for something like that. If, for instance, we at some point got an Angels and Demons set, it would be super exciting to see Sorcery commission one artist to do a series of either sites or relics or something like that. Something like doing a set of relics like we have seen in Magic the Gathering with Dan Frazier, who did the entire Talisman series. We could see something like that for Sorcery, and I think it would be extremely powerful to see an artist really let their creative freedom run wild and give us some awesome either sites, relics, or something connected to a main set like the Angels and Demons set that we're still speculating is coming up at some point.
You can also use Minisets for 2 interesting ways to explore themes. There might be a lot of things too small for an entire release in Sorcery. That could be minion times relics and stuff like that. And here a Miniset just might be the right answer to explore this sort of theme. If we, for instance, had a horror set, we might see the Miniset explore this theme of horror but have another focus. That could be, for instance, having the Miniset explore some sort of Lovecraftian myth and Lovecraftian creatures that might otherwise be too narrow a scope for an entire release.
A mini set might also be a great way of doing sort of a health check on a main release. Maybe the dev team had explored some different strategies or even minion types that are not seeing a lot of love or just need a bit more support to be really viable in the meta. Here, a mini set could come in after, say, 4 to 6 months and just add a few cards that would really support those strategies or minion types that are lacking in support in the main release. That would be a great way to balance out the main set and maybe even do some checks and balances on the gameplay and the meta of the original release. So far, we've mentioned a lot of advantages that are really exciting, and I really do love the prospects of some of these ideas, especially letting an artist just having free roam over an entire mini set. I think that would be absolutely amazing, especially coupled up with some really cool game space to explore for our dev team. However, there are some really tough practical decisions to be made in order to make sure that these mini sets hit the right people and also really maintain a nice balance between collectability, affordability, and accessibility. And even after the practical stuff, there are also some pretty serious disadvantages that we need to take a look at.
One pertinent concern about mini sets might be the actual packaging, because if we imagine mini sets being packaged into booster box, if you're only having a set between 15 and 50 cards, opening a booster box with these booster packs would be a really bad experience, because you're bound up to get way too many of the same cards every time you open up a pack. So having a mini set come out in booster packs does not seem to be a feasible option. One way to sell a mini set would of course be to just sell the entire set in one package deal, but this again will affect the collectability of the set, which we'll discuss later on in this video.
Next up on the list of stuff to figure out would be where to sell this product. Would it be the right thing to sell it to LGSs, which are usually more about out of the play box experiences, and this doesn't really fit that description? Or would it perhaps be better to be selling it on Sorcery Contested Realm's own website, or perhaps even the Cardi.io Sorcery Play Network site, where you can already get your dust rewards? These are definitely some of the things that would need to be figured out before entertaining the idea of multiple mini sets or even just one mini set per year. And the way that they decide to solve these problems would have a serious impact on some of the cons and disadvantages that we're about to discuss now.
The first problem with mini sets is the problem with product complexity. Right now, we really do enjoy that in Sorcery Contested Realm, you only have the booster box and the precon decks. Adding another product to this line is adding more stuff to buy. And even though it's not much, it's just one little mini set. Further down the road, if more things get added, it could increase the complexity with product in Sorcery Contested Realm, so that is something that they need to be aware of.
Sorcery, as part of the core game mechanics, has a rarity system that is tied on how you can build your decks up with how many copies you can have of each card. As you already know, uniques, for instance, is one up, so you can only have one in your deck. This is actually a really great way to ensure that these really high-powered cards aren't something that you're going to draw regularly, and it also ties back to the collectability, because uniques, especially those full uniques, am I right, are really difficult to pull. So if you have a mini set, how are you going to ensure that the rarities are not all just going to be the same? Either you would have to forego the idea of rarity for these mini sets in terms of just accepting that there will be an equal number printed of each of these cards. Otherwise, you would have to ensure that the uniques aren't in these mini sets, because you want to keep the idea of uniques as something rare and also something collectible. But how would this really play out, and what would that do to the power level?
And speaking of power level, because that's also a con when it comes to mini sets, they really need to figure out the power level of these sets, because if the mini sets are not powerful enough, players will simply forgo them because there's not enough great cards in the mini set to actually entice them to buy them. On the other hand, should the mini sets become too powerful, many of the cards in the mini sets would be staples for a lot of decks. That would also affect that it should be readily available, and that itself again plays into the collectability.
So the collectability would also be an issue for Minisets, or at least striking that perfect balance, which is always difficult anyways. If you purchase the Minisets as a complete bundle where all the cards are in there, you sort of have to forgo the whole idea of rarity and everything is printed to the same amount. And that might not necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, if you're a completionist and a collector that just wants everything, you're probably going to buy these anyway because you just want to have the full complement, and maybe the art is so great or the theme or something else that you really enjoy with the mini set. But it does mean they're probably not going to be very collectible if they're just print to demand and everybody has them. On the other hand, if these mini sets are truly great, and again, we're just speculating, they haven't committed to doing any mini sets, this is just an exploration. If these mini sets are really great or fun or even powerful, having them being a limited print could be very difficult because most players would want to get their hands on them because they include powerful cards that become staples in the meta or in specific decks. So if they can't access them, the prices for these mini sets would go up really high really quickly. So the idea of balancing them out and figuring out both the collectability and accessibility is a real pickle, and it does need to be solved before even entertaining the idea of having more mini sets.
So Minisets could be a great way to get new cards in between sets, allowing artists to develop their style and explore different themes, developing world building, and also getting new titles for already existing components in deck building.
However, there are, as we just discussed, some real obstacles on how this product is going to be offered to the players and the community. But we might see how Sorcery's team intends to actually solve this when we see how Ed Beard Jr.'s Dragonlord set is both packaged and sold later on, presumably in early 2025.
We would really like to know what you think are the pros and cons of mini sets, and if there's something that we haven't explored in this video. Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section.
And if you're really curious to figure out what's going to happen with the first expansion of Arthurian Legends, check out this video right up there.
Thank you for watching, and a huge thank you to our YouTube channel members and our patrons streaming down below. You are the coolest.